Today, how to scout landscapes to include the moon. Plus, we're going to talk about Apple's new Mac Pro's release a little bit, and I'll take a couple of your recent questions on the Nikon Z6 and Z7. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson here. Welcome to Approaching the Scene. I want to take just a second out right up front here to thank all the new subscribers. There have been a lot of new subscribers, and I just want to thank everyone who's been watching this channel for liking, for subscribing, for sharing it with their friends. It's making a big difference. So, all right, so I have been sort of working on my 2020 workshops, and I just want to share some of the things that I do to think about what's happening in a location in advance of going there. Even as I'm starting to kind of lay out, what's going to be on our schedule on these workshops. So for example, I'm teaching this Portland workshop and I'm scheduling it, kind of determining where to put it. I'm thinking into July, early August, when we've got really nice weather in Portland here in Oregon. And one of the first things I'll do is, if I'm going to the coast, I'll look at what's going on with the tides wherever I go, whether I'm on my own trip, whether I'm scheduling a workshop. I'm going to think about what's happening with the moon. Is it a new moon where it's chasing the sun and there's opportunities at dawn and sunset for a sliver moon in a color-changing sky? Is that going to lead to Milky Way potential? At what hours are there going to be potential for Milky Way? What's around that we could use with the Milky Way? Is there a full moon rising and setting at the same time as the sun rise and set? So one of the first things I do is I jump on my phone and I'm going to just start recording my screen here. I've got my Pixel 3 XL here. I'm a Google Pixel user. I know a lot of people are iPhone users. The phone app that I'm going to talk about is compatible with both iPhone and Android. It's really powerful. It's called Sun Surveyor. So I'm going to flip over here, and I could either pull up all my apps here on my phone and grab Sun Surveyor, or I've got a little widget on my Android phone here that's running all the time telling me what's happening with the sun and the moon in the location where I am. So I'm just going to hit that widget and launch the app. In your iPhone, you'd find it, wherever you're storing apps. It's probably on your home screen. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff that goes on here in Sun Surveyor. We're going to focus on ephemeris, which is just sort of data about what's happening with the sun, the moon, the Milky Way, and general photo opportunities. I want to make sure that I'm focused here on Portland. I could search for a place, use the GPS, whatever. You get any location that you're after. Right now, I'm in Portland in my home studio here. So Portland, Oregon's already set up here just by GPS. I want to choose a date, and I'm thinking about actually the last day in July for starting out this workshop. So I'm going to put July 31st, 2020. Boom, there we go. Friday, July 31st. And I want to take a look at, what's going on with the moon. Well, we've got almost a full moon. It's waxing gibbonous. It's 91% moon. So I want to go ahead and take a look at what is this thing saying for photo opportunities. Well, here we go. Saturday night, August 1st, we've got a full moon at sunset. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. This is the perfect time to schedule a photo workshop here in Portland. That's going to make me delve in and take a look at what other opportunities are there out there. So one of the iconic shots that I've always been after and that I think of when I think of a full moonrise at sunset around Portland is Mount Hood with the moon. And so the first thing I did is I went and used this technique that I'm going to show you to find a really great location to photograph Mount Hood with the full moon rising. This is actually from my Portland workshop about a year ago. A little bit later in the year, and this was actually from up on Pittock Mansion, and we had this unfortunate bit of cloud here that at the perfect moment kind of obscured the sun as it was just rising with a little more light on the mountain. Hopefully this year, doing it in July, August, we'll have a little bit less cloud, and I got a totally different location where it's going to line up the moon just perfect, where we're close to the mountain, use a long lens, make the moon look nice and big. But I want to show you how I do that. So once I find out using my Sun Surveyor app that there's going to be something interesting happening with the moon, I like going to the photographer's ephemeris. This is this website that you can go to, and there's a web kind of Google Maps driven based interface here where you can search. Here I've searched for Portland and it pops up Multnomah County, Oregon. Boom, here's my hometown. And I've chosen, you can go into a calendar and choose what date, but I've chosen that Sunday, August 2nd. I've already got a plan for the mountain on Saturday night. I'm going to show you what I'm thinking about for the city. We're going to be out photographing the city on Sunday in this Portland workshop this year. And I'll put a link to this workshop in the video description if you jump in there. It's also live on my website if anybody's interested. I'm going to fully announce it via email tomorrow, but I just put it up. So you can see here that we've got the sunset at 8:30 and we've got moonrise or 8:36 and moonrise at 8:32. It's right at sunset. It's a pretty much full moon, 99.7. Actually, Sunday night's the full-on full moon. And so when I look at this map, what we've got is a timeline down below. I can scroll in, I can place myself around here, I can switch between map and satellite view. I like the satellite view to get an idea where buildings are and that kind of thing. And I immediately start thinking about the cool bridges that we've got around here. So we've got a really beautiful new bridge called the Tillicum Bridge, and that is right in, let's see, if I zoom in a little bit more, that's the Morrison Bridge. So there's the Hawthorne, and then the Tillicum would be a little bit further south. So I'm just going to drag my pen. I'm going to show you how I would go to set up. There's the Tillicum Bridge right there. I'm going to zoom in on this whole map a little bit and think about some places to be, and I'll show you what these lines on the map mean. The bright yellow line here is the sunrise. That's the line that the sun is going to be rising on that Sunday morning. The bright orange line is the sunset. If you were standing here, that's the line that the sun would set on. The dark blue line is the moon set, and the light blue line is the moon rise. And you can see there's a timeline down below here that goes from midnight to midnight for the day we have chosen, Sunday, August 2nd. So what I can do here is just drag this timeline, and you can see there's kind of there's a line of what's happening. If I start out here, you can see where these lines cross. You're actually seeing that the moon is above the horizon, below the horizon, blue. Above the horizon, same thing with the sun, above the horizon, below the horizon. So right here we're seeing, the sun is behind the horizon. You see this little faint line, it's indicating the sun's behind the horizon. And then boom, it's going to rise on that yellow line, and you see a shadow line move across the other side. That's giving you an idea where there's a shadow, when different parts are going to be hit by direct light in this location. So you see that kind of shadow line getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and then this comes along. And as we move through the day and we approach sunset, you're going to expect that right about sunset, you're going to see the moon come rising out of this blue line. Right now the moon is under the horizon, and you see the sun's shadow line stretching down. That bridge is going to be in shadow, and then the moon rises. Boom, right there. So, right there, we've got moonrise over the Tillicum Bridge. Now, this is the Tillicum Bridge right here. So what I can do is zoom right down in, and I can actually see on this satellite photo these beautiful kind of cabled bridge stanchions. And I can think about where should I take the workshop along here. Right underneath the kind of I-5 interchange. It's going to be a little bit loud, but it should be rising right behind that beautiful bridge structure right there. It's a suspension bridge, and we can just walk along in here on this path and set up and get the moon rising right over that bridge. So this is really the way that I often think about these things. If it were important to me to have that bridge from a great distance, like a mountain, I would look at this line and be moving my pin along, keeping it over that bridge, and I can find anywhere along this line that we stand as photographers. If we have a view of that bridge, we're going to have the moon right behind it. So that's really my trick. That's how the photographer's ephemeris is just super, super useful for this kind of thing, particularly if you use it in a conjunction with an app like Sun Surveyor, where it literally is going to spell out what potential photographic opportunities are happening at a given time. All right, so again, I'm going to put the link to the Portland workshop. I'm always around to take questions about how I use all this stuff. I know I can foresee a bunch of people asking about Photo Pills, and I'll say that I think that Sun Surveyor and Photo Pills are two different apps. They're both great at a lot of the same things, but there's enough of a difference between the two that I actually pay for both and use both. I like the augmented reality in photo pills, particularly for visualizing where the Milky Way is going to be in the landscape before it happens and figuring out where to be at night, in the dead of night, for Milky Way photography. I like Sun Surveyor for the ephemeris types, especially where it's going to give me the exact time that different things are happening and point out events that are upcoming. And I actually like its overlay of just looking at the sun and the moon and the landscape and where they're going to be rising and setting using the camera's phone. So both apps are really good. I'll put links to those apps, although you can just go to the App Store for those of you that are iPhone users, or the Google Play Store if you're an Android user, and download those. They're both good cross-platform. Photographer's Ephemeris, I'll put a link to that mapping app. It's focused on Portland, so that you can just start right there and start using it. I'll put a link in the video description. All this stuff is in a video description, along with links to all the gear that I use. So I want to talk for just a second. Apple just allowed orders to start flowing for the big new Mac Pro. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I was waiting for the Mac Pro. I was excited. I was planning to be one of the first pre-orders for the new and refreshed Mac Pro. I have been using the older trash can 2013 Mac Pro for a really long time. And I was really disappointed when the base model came out with what I thought were a little bit substandard specs at $6,000, with, and that's a computer without a screen. And so instead I went ahead and I made the leap. I'm still using my MacBook Pro, but I made the leap and went to a Windows 10 machine from Dell that's just spectacularly with a NVIDIA 1080 graphics card with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of RAM in the computer itself. I guess video memory, I mean the DRAM for the video card, that 8 gigabytes. So 64 gigs of RAM for the computer, a terabyte of SSD NVMe, really fast storage on board, Thunderbolt 3, really tons of fast USB 3.1 Gen B ports. I mean, just a blazing machine for well under $3,000. And a good friend of mine, Andy, that works with me here in the studio, a filmmaker, did some performance testing and then built his own system, just bought motherboard and parts and built basically the same computer I bought in his own case for less than $2,000. And I want to just take a look at, I speculated how much it might cost to customize the Mac Pro to kind of match the system that I bought. And I've been very happy with. And I'll link a couple videos about that. I had a kind of a WTF Apple video, and then a video about how I configured my PC and really got it very usable for me as a longtime Mac user. And I've been very happy with it. But let me just show, obviously this is the big news item, is that if you max the new Mac Pro out, it's over $50,000, which that's a different computer. That's a machine built for the NSA to be tapping all of our phones and listening for target keywords and throwing them up in front of listening agents, or Pixar to be doing the highest possible rendering for the latest animated feature. That's really not for those of us photo and light video editors. But I wanted to jump in here. Here's the base Mac Pro, and let's see what it would cost to get it competitive with my machine. So I have an i9 9900 processor that does turbo boost to 5 gigahertz. And I've done just a little research. The Mac Pro is really built with kind of a server enterprise level processor that you can scale up and get up to 28 cores and crazy, but its base processor is probably, I wouldn't need to upgrade it, but as I've done some research for myself, I really think that the core processors are a bit better for creative professionals that are just dabbling in photo editing and video editing, because of the increased speed that you can get with the boost, especially if you're cooled well enough. The more expensive chip that Apple's using is a little bit slower and just ludicrously stable for big enterprise platforms and servers, but not necessarily as high performance as the Core i9 processor. So, that's something you can't quite get equivalent. I have 64 gigs of RAM in my machine. The Mac Pro only comes with 32. 48 adds $300. Let's just bump to 96. It's a little bit more RAM, but that's another $1,000. If I come over here, it's got a Radeon Pro 580X with 8 gigs of memory. I certainly don't need 32 gigs of memory for what I do. I'm not editing 8K video. I do some 4K video, which works just fine with my 8 gigabyte NVIDIA 1080. But I did do a little research on the NVIDIA card that I have with my computer versus the Radeon Pro, and it gets significantly higher marks in every review that I look at. So, you know, there's no real way to get quite as nice a video card as I've gotten my machine without dropping another $2,400, but I won't tag that on. I have a terabyte SSD that's NVMe very fast M2 memory in my PC, and I don't think I need any other stuff. So it's a little less than I speculated. I was worried it might cost 10 grand to ramp this thing up, but I'm still slightly, you know, I'm not sure that I would have as good a processor for what I do or as good a video card for what I do as the PC that I built. And considering that my machine cost less than $3,000, I'm pretty happy with my decision to try moving over to the dark side. And I, again, have had nothing but happiness working with Adobe and On1 software for photo and video editing, and even, you know, navigating, doing everything that I do. There's been nothing that I've had a significant problem with the exception of having to switch over to a different screen capture software to do videos for you guys and to incorporate in this when I'm capturing my screen. I use ScreenFlow for the Mac. That doesn't exist for the PC, so I had to go to something called Snagit, which is also really excellent. So one piece of software I had to buy in addition. Anywho, so I got some videos about that stuff if you want to check it out, they're there. All right, so to wrap up today, I want to answer a couple questions that I've heard from a number of people and point out some cool new stuff from my friends at Lumalabs that make my favorite camera strap. And I'll start out with a couple of people point out to me, I talked about how in my latest review of the Z6 and Z7 1 year after using them and really falling in love with Nikon's mirrorless system, that I liked focus peaking and manual focus. And some people pointed out to me, and it's actually something I know but I just kind of forgot to mention, that if you're using autofocus with these Z cameras and you start turning the manual focus switch and just hit the autofocus button, it'll let the manual focus override and it'll bring up focus peaking without switching to manual focus mode. And you can actually see focus peaking on the screen as you're dialing that manual focus with your finger, and you get that focus peaking perfect. Then take your thumb off the focusing switch and you're locked in with the focus peaking. So that's a really nice feature. You can even zoom in and do that. And I believe that came with a firmware update. It might have been firmware 2.0 that added that. So again, you have your focus on the back button, which I recommend for everyone to have. Hit that back button focus and then grab the manual focus ring, which will override autofocus, and then the peaking will automatically turn on. The camera flips into manual focus mode when you start turning that ring. And with the autofocus button held down, you'll see the peaking come up live on the screen as you're dialing in that focus manually, and you can zoom in at the same time. So that's a really cool feature. I had a lot of people after that review ask about this custom eye cup that I have for both the Z6 and Z7. It's very affordable. I don't even remember the name of the manufacturer. I've got an Amazon link to it in the video description down below. It's under $20. It's far nicer than the stock one, which actually wore out on both of my cameras in the first year. It's soft, but it wears out a little bit easy. One thing I like about this one is if you turn the camera vertical, you can switch it if you're left-eyed or right-eyed. You can just rotate that cup so that it really blocks light out of the side. You know, I use my right eye, so this is set for holding the camera horizontal. If I turn it to vertical on the tripod, I can switch it around however I want. It's really, really handy, cheap. It pops right off. It's kind of large, so when I put it in my camera bag to protect it, I usually pop it off, stick the camera in, and tuck it in beside the lens, just like that in the bag. So again, got a link to that, and it's also in my links for the mirrorless section of my gear links, which have all of my gear linked, and I really appreciate you guys using those links. It helps support the channel. The other thing I want to talk about quick before I sign off is I actually got the new Lumalabs Loop 3.5 from my good buddies at Lumalab. And it has a really improved strap connection to this kind of nice, stretchy, soft shoulder pad on the strap. The old ones had D-rings and they get old wear and kind of rotate around a little bit, and I love how they're constantly kind of improving the strap. They put these nice lugs in here that the strap can't twist through and get turned around, and also they don't spin in the leather here. So a really nice addition. I know they have some of these guys in stock both in QD mount and in this cool hinged quarter 20 threaded mount, which you can put on your L bracket or the base of your camera. I love the simplicity and adjustability of this strap. It's a really, really great strap made by people right here in Portland, Oregon. Made and designed, manufactured. So cool stuff. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. I hope everybody is having a fun holiday season, whatever holidays you celebrate. I know my kids are just losing their minds for Christmas right now. So hope everybody else is having fun too. And we'll see you next week.